How are we supposed to be with someone when they're in this state of grieving? What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to say? What should our actions be if we want to help someone through the grieving process at the highest level possible? Hi, I'm David Essel. This is such an incredibly important topic. It's something that I have been teaching for 35 years, the secret of grief and the secret of grieving. And there is a secret to it without a doubt. And it starts with what I'm going to talk about right now. And that is, how are we supposed to be with someone else? You know, if we can learn how to be with someone else in their grieving process, losing a loved one, losing a pet, losing a job, whatever it might be, it'll help us to understand when we're in the grieving process what our needs are. In this world, very few people know how to work with someone, talk to someone, treat someone who's in grief, like really intense grief. And so I want to do this as a way to help give some thoughts and ideas. I'm David Essel. You're listening to David Essel Live, America's most positive podcast, not a doubt, even in the world for 35 years now, radio, TV, podcasting. And we are on Buzzsprout.com. If you go to Buzzsprout.com and just Google David Essel, you'll find our page there, and we have thousands of hours of interviews from my Sirius XM radio days all the way up to today, you know, and then we're doing a bunch of segments like this. So the number one thing when we have someone who's grieving, someone who just lost a loved one, let's say, is to be silent. Allow them to cry, to scream. Allow them to claw, to scratch. Allow them to be. It's the most important thing. One of the worst things we do when someone is grieving is that we make comments that we think are good. We're doing the best we can. It's what we've learned from maybe our parents or society, etc. But we'll say things like, well, you know, that person's in a better place, and at least they're not suffering anymore, and God needed another angel, and oh my Lord, you know, that they were ready 6 months ago, they were ready 10 years ago. But what if it's sudden? What if there was no understanding that it was going to happen? Those type of phrases, to me, we never use those in the beginning. I wouldn't say, you know, your loved one is in a better place, or your partner's in a better place, or your child, for God's sake, is in a better place until the person has really gone through the complete grieving process and they've come out the other side. There is so much to be done. There's so much releasing. There's so much venting. And the very best thing we can do is to be there for them. You know, when I have a friend or someone that I'm very close to that goes through losing, it could be a pet, it could be a job, it could be a loved one, you know, I will hold them and allow them to cry, allow them to scream. And I won't say a word. I'll just tell them I'm here for them. And when they're done with their venting, when they're done with their releasing of pain, I'll say, is there anything I can get for you? Is there something I can do for you? But I keep it very minimal. And I'm encouraging you to do the same thing. The most important thing for someone grieving is to know there's someone there that cares, but that they're not giving advice. Someone who's grieving doesn't need advice. And even if we gave them the best advice in the world, they probably wouldn't even understand it at the time. So let's pull back on giving advice. Let's be present with them. When in my clinical setting, when I'm working in the office and there's someone like this, of course, I'm not going to go and hold them for an hour while they, you know, cry, but I will sit across the desk from them and I will look deeply into their eyes, and I will sit and allow them to say everything and anything they want to. If they want to blame God, I let them just let it rip. If they want to blame the doctors, I let it rip. I don't interfere. I don't interrupt. I'm asking you to do the same thing. Allow them to say, to do whatever they need to, as long as it's not harming themselves. You know, allow them to process their grief in the way they do. We all do it differently. And, you know, unless you go through a grieving process, you don't even know how to grieve, for God's sake. We teach people how to grieve. We teach people how to look for both the yin and the yang of the grieving process. You know, grieving has everything. It has intense sadness. But what we come to understand as we go through the work is that sadness is really deep love. That's the love we have for the person or the pet that we've lost. The tears are tears of love. We may not recognize that for 6 months or a year after the grieving process is over, but at some point down the road, if we're doing it correctly, we will realize, wow, all of that energy, all of those tears, all of the screaming, all of the crying, It's because I love that person or I love that pet so deeply. Please never forget that. And when you're sitting with someone, you can hold their hand. I'll do that. I'll reach across the desk and put my hands out. And if someone wants to hold my hands, they can. If they don't want to, they don't have to. But, allow that person to hold your hand. Sit in silence. Allow them to do what they need to do. And if they're in silence, let you both sit in silence. That's the ultimate. When someone can trust you, that they can be silent, you don't have to fill those void. You don't have to fill that space with words, because no words will help right now. Your presence will help. Your love will help. Your presence and your love is all they need. They don't need your advice. They don't need your words. They just need to know you care. They need to know you care. If I can help you at all in your grieving process, go to talkdavid.com. Just send me an email. Rewatch this video because it's very different than what we've been taught in society. Share it if you'd like to. And again, if I can help you in any way at all, talkdavid.com. I'm wishing you a beautiful, beautiful day.